The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly Speaking podcast coming to you December 20th, 2022. Birthday shout out to my dad, who turns 66 today, actually, but looks like 36. As he joked around earlier on the phone, and I called him today. Happy birthday, Dad! We love you. I love you. Grandkids love you. Everybody loves you. One of my biggest inspirations in my life. Just keep doing big things, man. Keep doing good things, and continue bringing a positive influence in my life and everybody else's, of course. Anyway, how you guys doing? This episode is going to be probably the last normal episode of the year. Of course, we're approaching the holiday season. We'll have 2 more podcasts this year, definitely on this feed. But the next one is going to be my annual family, appearance after Christmas podcast. I do it with my kids, and my wife will join as well too. So that'll be a little different as well. So we'll have one more show in the docket, and then also I am also planning on putting together a best of episode to drop on New Year's Eve, around New Year's Eve, possibly on the day of, which I'm actually working on now. So I'm want to use some of this time, this open time, to do that. But also, like I said, it's also the kids are out of school, starting this week, starting Thursday for 2 weeks, and I really want to commit myself for these next couple weeks to kind of not be attached to the normal, things I do every day, which is, obviously work. Obviously, you have to work and all that, but the podcast is pretty much, very much a priority in my life, and and I try. You gotta try to get out content at least 2 times a week, 2 times a week. At least that's how I feel. But I want to use these next 2 weeks to really focus on my family, and not just my immediate family, my extended family. As I said, the holidays for us especially is a big deal because, with December, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of birthdays, especially like my dad's birthday's today. Like I said, you still have, obviously, got my brother, my nephew coming up this week, aunts next week, cousins this week. It's a lot going on. Lots of holiday plans right now being put together as we speak. So I want to be kind of unattached to just the things I do every day on a normal basis, and kind of just be open to all the possibilities out there, with involving family and whatnot. Because to me, it's important. To me, when you have things that are gonna I'm not gonna say upset the apple cart, but things are gonna be different, I want to embrace it. I want to embrace some of those things now. We'll get back to this again, the norm, in January, once we get back to past the holidays, of course. But I want to enjoy it. I'm looking forward to the holidays here. My mom, for example, my mom is putting together a big Christmas Eve pajama party with the entire family and some friends. I'm looking forward to that on Christmas Eve. I know my sister is planning also on doing a big gathering of family on my dad's side of the family next week. Family gonna be in town from out of town, and I just want to be able to invest enough time into my family, which I can. Also, I am an uncle again. My young brother Eric had his second kid late last week, and maybe came early. In fact, it came 3 weeks early. In fact, which I guess they'll come early. But I didn't think it'd come that early. So right now, I'm in that mode right now where I'm just trying to be all about everybody else and just kind of be on the outside. And it's funny, like, whenever you get a new child in the family, or whether it's yours or someone directly related to you, whether it's, your sister, your brother, it makes you reflect on your own life, and then on your life and having kids and whatnot. And being an uncle is something I've always taken seriously. I don't know if I appreciate it enough though, because becoming a dad in the last 9 years, I feel like prioritizing being an uncle has been kind of on a back burner in some ways, because you're so knee deep into raising your own kids and make sure their things are settled, and you're so 120% invested in all that. That sometimes I feel like, at least on my end, that I don't do enough for my nephews and nieces, or at least see them enough, or talk to them enough. And I say that because my own uncle, Uncle Errol, who we sadly lost back in 2015, he was a big part of my life. A big part of my life growing up. Like, he was a second father to me. Growing up in New York, before he moved to Florida, he would always, every Saturday, take me to McDonald's and to the playground every weekend on command. He spent a lot of time with me growing up. He shaped a lot of my interests. He shaped a lot of the importance of family, shaping life lessons for me that to this day, that are deemed important, that I still to this day keep with me. A lot of the joke in the family is that I was his first son, because I'm the firstborn child in the entire of all the grandkids of that entire triangle. My grandparents, and then their siblings, and then of course their kids. I'm the firstborn of the grandkids. So, in a lot of ways, the joke is in the family that I was his practice baby. I was his first kid before he had his first kid. He didn't have his first kid until 4 years after he had me. Until my mom and dad, 4 years after the fact. And so when my nephew being born this past week, kind of it gets you back into that mode again, and into that thinking about that, and how important it is to still be there and still have a voice into the voices to the lives of your nieces and nephews. And I'm trying that. Like, I know with my sister's kids, for example, I'm pretty close to all three of them. And I feel like I've gotten a lot closer to them in recent years, especially this year. Them being back living here and again in Florida has helped a lot with that. Distance does help. Them bonding with my kids also as well too. So we do all those things, and I'm trying to become more open to the family dynamic. It's amazing having a blended family too, because a lot of people say, oh, my mom and dad never married. I wish I had my mom and dad that would never marry. Honestly, I've never been that guy. I love the fact that my mom and dad never got married, because it opened the door of possibilities for me. It opened the door of having so many different things and so many different people in my life who I appreciate so much. And I wouldn't have that if my mom and dad got married. So I love my life story and how things played out throughout the years. Honestly, I couldn't ask any better. Honestly, I couldn't. So I'm excited again by being an uncle once again. I think what do I have now? I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters. So my sister has 3 kids. So has two nephews, 1 niece there. My brother's had a kid, Eric. He has now 2 sons now. An older 17-year-old Elijah, who's a fantastic kid, which I love to be able to talk to him more. Whenever I see him, it's always great. It's always talking about basketball and all that stuff, and we have similar interests and stuff. So 2 boys now, so that's 2 nephews there. Then on my mom's side, of course, my brother Maurice, he has 2 girls. So I have 2 nieces there. Then my other brother Kylan has 1 daughter, Farah, and the only kidless one of the bunch is my sister Aisha. No kids yet. She knows better, I guess, right? She knows better. But yeah, that's a lot of my goal going forward, especially going as I get older, is trying to, I have my own kids, I have my own responsibilities, yes, and I want to continue to take care of those things. But I also want to be able to still invest in time with my nieces and nephews, obviously. So again, congrats to my my brother and my soon-to-be sister-in-law Angie for the birth of their young one, Ethan. So this episode is called Clearing the Palate. And the reason it's called that is because I said earlier in the podcast that this is going to be probably my last normal podcast on this feed for a while. Now, granted, if you haven't subscribed to my other podcast, Earnestly Unfiltered, I'll still be putting things on that feed, more time-sensitive stuff on that feed related to the NFL and other things of that nature. So check out that one. Those are more topical, short-form podcasts. But this show, I'm going to kind of lay back the next 2 weeks, other than what I just told you earlier on the show. So a little behind the curtain here with the podcast, typically. What I do normally is, like, when I decide to do topics, when I know I'm going to do my own, especially a show where it's solo like this, typically what I do is I pile up on my notepad on my iPhone. Just pile up things on a page of things I want to talk about. Nothing in detail. Just like if I want to talk about like the NBA schedule, I want to talk about Kanye West, this and that, which I really don't want to talk about, to be honest with you. Or intermittent fasting, or the gym, going to the gym. Should I get the gym membership, or things of that nature? What I do, I just take the page I have on here, just pile on things, and then at some point I get closer to the day where I want to do a podcast. Maybe about a day or two before I do a podcast, I start looking at the list again and see what things can I pick up in here that are something I want to talk about now, and I'll just plug away things on my list, and then put together an episode in that way. And that's how I normally prepare my shows anyway, mostly, especially the solo shows. But what I wanted to do today was clear the palate, and what I mean by that is that I wanted to go through the entire. Basically clear out my list of things. Start 2023 anew. Start 2023 clean. Because there'll always be things to talk about when I get to the next over the bridge. When I go to 2023, there will be other things to talk about at that time. So there's a lot of things on my note list that's been piled up for a good few weeks, maybe even a few months. So what I wanted to do was just kind of like just clear through the list, clear the palette, like things on my list, just clear it out. Same way I do with subscriptions and with shows I'm binging, clear it out, finish it up, try to clear it out. I hate having things pending. I just do. It's one of those weird things where, yeah, you can take a break and step back and let things sit, whatever. Doesn't mean I like it. I hate when I have a show I'm watching, for example. And that's another thing we'll be doing this next year is prioritizing, different shows I'm behind on that I haven't had a chance to clear yet. I hate having pending things. I just hate it. If I'm reading an article, I hate having an article pending. Books I'm reading, I hate having that pending. I want to be able to clear it out, just finish it up. It's a mental thing. I can't explain it. It's the ADHD in me probably. I don't understand it. Don't try to figure it out. So I'm going to try to clear the palate here on this show today. That's my goal. This show can go maybe 45 minutes, a little longer. We'll see how it plays out. But I'm just going to go through the entire list of things that here I'm going to clear the palate and kind of just go from there. So one of the things I'm really excited about now, as of late for me, I'm starting to get a little bit of my personal life back just a little bit, not a lot. Obviously, you have your priorities, the wife, the kids, the homework, all the stuff that goes around that. But with the ever-changing schedules with my wife and I, work schedules and kids going to school now, we now got a kindergartner now, fourth grader. What's happening with me personally is that all of a sudden now I'm starting to get little bits and pieces of my life back. Not everything, not all days and stuff. But I do have a couple of days a week now where I do get 4 hours, maybe a little bit more, to myself where I can be me again, where I can be EJ, where I can go get a coffee get a tea or a hot chocolate somewhere, go to the gym here, binge something I'm behind on that's mine, do this podcast, things of that nature, go to the gym. Like I think I said that. And now with some of the things that's happened in recent weeks with schedules, I now have all of a sudden fallen into a situation now where I do have at least 2 days a week now, today being one of those days, of course, where I have a period of 4 to 5 hours, where I have the world is my oyster, that I could do what I need to do, what I want to do, that involves only me. And it's kind of cool, actually. And it's also weird because now I'm trying to figure out, okay, before I had kids, before you met my wife, what did I used to do before? How did I take stock in life? And now, granted, the thing is, it's hard to compare that because, even if I was still single, I would still be a different person at age 42 than I was at age 25, 26 before I met my wife. So one of the things I've learned as I've started, with through this path, the last 16, 17 years of what I built with my wife and then us getting married and having kids, is that you really learn to appreciate the time you do have for the things you value. Like if you don't have kids, if you don't have a marriage, you don't really understand the value of time, because you don't have to worry about divvying time for other folks. Sure, you have to go to work and you have to do certain things and responsibilities, but for the most part, if you're living for yourself only, you don't have to worry about, like, okay, what time to have dinner, or what time to make dinner for your kids, or put the kids to sleep, or take them to school, because those things don't exist. So so the value of time is not predicated to that person in that moment. But when you have the responsibilities like that, when you have the wife and you have the kids and you have all these things that come with that, and you don't have time to go visit a friend or go on a distant vacation or this or that, when you do start getting it back, you start to appreciate even the hours you have to yourself. I started this podcast back in 2011, and I remember for a long time when I became a dad in 2013. That it became a mission to carve out time to record podcasts. So the little time I did have, even back then, was one child. If I wanted to guest on the show, for example, I had to make sure it was almost the exact time. Because, again, I may have had an hour or two to myself, but it was also bargained with my wife or bargained with my child's nap schedule. So, if for example, Eli, my oldest son Eli, he would nap religiously twice a day, sometimes between 12 and 2 or 1 and 4. So I would always build my podcast schedule around those times. But that wasn't always exact. Sometimes he'd wake up earlier, and then I had to go take care of that situation and take care of him. And which, I'm not complaining about it. That's just what the time allotted for. Now you have kids now who are two kids who are both in school now regularly. So all of a sudden now, and you saw this last year too. My fourth grader started going to school. Not fourth grader. My Logan, my youngest son, started going to pre-K last year. That's 3 hours a day. So last year it opened up time for me a little bit where I had 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day to do my own thing. 2 hours really, because I had to pick my kid from school, my other kid from school an hour before that. And now this year he's in school full time now. So all of a sudden, the days I'm home from work, I now have a window of 5 hours on certain days a week when I'm home from work. So, for example, today I'm off. My wife is at work for a whole day today. All my kids are in school. So now I have 5 hours of to do whatever I want. Okay? And then I have a second day now to do that. On Thursdays to do that. Now, how long that'll stay that way, we'll see. Because remember, the schedule changing is always fluid sometimes. But it's kind of cool that I'm starting to finally get back the opportunity to kind of go back to my personal life, go back to the things that I enjoy, that isn't shared by the wife or shared by the kids. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. My wife has that herself. In fact, my wife has 3 days of that way. She has 3 days a week where, like me, when I'm at work and she's home, she has the same amount of time. Honestly, has more time. Because I go work a lot earlier than she does, where she can do the same thing too and have her personal life. If she wants to go to have her lunch with girls, with her girlfriends, and things of that nature, But it's cool because it's, again, made me appreciate the value of time. Every hour is important. Every minute's important. That you use, and little by little we're getting that back, which is cool. And the older the kids get, the less you have to be over them all the time, and this can open up a little more. That includes podcasts, that includes personal ventures you want to do, things of that nature. So I'm really excited about that. And it's why I've also tried to stay on the horse on doing the show. But I also, at the same time, don't want to keep using all my alone time to just do podcasts. So I'm trying to go to the gym more. I'm trying to go visit my mom, have lunch with her, trying to go see a friend or things of that nature. You want to do the things. I want it to be diverse, use the time wisely, not only for podcasts, but for other things too also. So it's one of those give and takes. Now, maybe 10 years ago this happened and there was a situation today, 10 years ago, I probably do only podcasts because I'll be honest, while I'm still very much loving the medium and it's my therapy and it's all this stuff, it's also, I'm also 42 years old now. I have a lot more things I need to, I would like to accomplish, and things that in my mind, I believe should be a priority than just podcasts. Diversifying the palette a little bit, diversifying the things you do, So, but it's one of the things that I always tend to struggle with, is balance. Pet peeves. Some of my pet peeves of the podcast, for example, people who do podcasts and then they do 3 episodes and they stop for like fucking like 5 or 6 months, or I'm not so big on equipment and sound, because I understand that I'm personally the person that believes that authenticity, regardless of how you sound on there, as long as you're getting good quality content out, that will always see through. But there's a lot of people who do this medium, and they say they like it and this and that, and then they, to me, it's a pet peeve, because I take this seriously. I even as a passion project, I take it seriously. I enjoy it. The things I say, whether it's one person in the podcast, or 500, or 5,000, or 5 million, maybe someone connects with me on something I said on here, and I take that seriously. I really do. And there are people who, maybe it's me being a little bit judgmental as a podcaster, but the people who do this, and like they just don't, they do it, and then they just don't do it for a long time, and then that's it, and this I don't know. It's a pet peeve of mine, because a lot of people who get in this medium, some I've actually influenced on this medium to get on this medium, for example. I really try my best to motivate them to use this as an avenue to whatever you need to do. I believe in podcasting. I believe in the medium itself. And whether or not you're doing sports or tech or business or just personal journals like this one, I believe in the medium. I wish people took it more seriously. Like you can run through a bunch of podcast directories and stuff, and you'll see people who started podcasts, say like maybe 2015 or 16. They do 4 episodes, then they don't do one for the next like year or so, or they do one like say early in the year and then do 2 episodes and then they don't return to it. And I'm not saying that things didn't happen between there that didn't cause them to do that, but at the same time, I really believe that getting on the horse and being consistent is important. When you're consistent on this thing, just put out content, put it out. Stop questioning what you're doing. Put out the content. Just put it out. Put it to the ether. Put it to the masses. Someone's just going to connect with you on that. I firmly believe in that. I really do. I really do. I want to talk about a little bit about Christmas real quick, and the very funny Secret Santa gift I got this year. So if you guys listen to the podcast, other show I'm on the panel, Huddle Up Podcast, every Tuesday, which check it out tonight, by the way. Football podcast. Earlier this year, we did a little inside baseball on the show. We recorded an episode, I think back in April and May. And it was a sports draft episode. Now, the thing is, those shows we do normally, we typically, during the NFL offseason, what we do is like we'll take like 3 or 4 episodes, record 3 or 4 short episodes at one time, and then we'll put them out, every other week, whatever, maybe, however Jim does it. And we did an episode on a sports draft, drafted the best sports movie, the best sports draft movies, the best movies in sports, in our opinion. We drafted movies, and we were scheduled tonight to do, as I said, the 3 or 4 episodes that night. That was one of the episodes, and there was a couple of other ones. And the draft was the first episode we had on the docket. Unfortunately, that night, I couldn't make it to that episode last second because of my kid. I think my son was sick, had a hard time sleeping. And of course, my wife was home that night, so it's me. So I had to miss that episode that night as a result. So, as a spoof, and people don't know this, but it's a spoof, the 4 guys on the show at the time, they decided to draft for me. And they picked all these randomly bad movies on the show. Last week on Huddle Up episode, I had actually revealed the gift on the show. So if you guys didn't see the movie, or didn't see the episode rather last week, the movies that were drafted on there for me were the following: Rudy, Teen Wolf, Who's Your Caddy, The Babe, MVP, which is the most valuable primate. Okay, and I think what's the other one? The last one here. Oh yeah, The Main Event with Barbara Streisand. Now these are considered to be very bad movies. Cult classic bad movies, if you want to call it that. So, with our friends now, I also do another wrestling podcast called Takes Wrestling, and it's also Big Jim's on that show with us, but also he has his own show called 3CT, 3 Count Thursday, and we've pretty much become really good friends in the last year or so, and we all decided to do a Secret Santa thing this year, and I had Matthew Muleisen, who's been a guest on the show a couple times this year, as a guest, as my Secret Santa, well, his Secret Santa, and he decides to send me his gift. I had no idea he was I had no idea he was the Secret Santa until I got the gift. He sends me the DVDs individually of all of the movies they drafted on this episode on Hold Up. Hysterical. I remember getting the gift last week, and my wife was like, What is this stuff? What is this? So I open the gift, and it's each of these movies that were drafted in the sports draft on DVD. And I bolted out laughing my ass off. She did too. She did eventually after I explained to her the meaning of this and why these specific movies. And I couldn't help but laugh. Now, of all these movies, I've only watched Rudy, I believe. I'm probably never going to see these movies ever in my life. But the gift was, I have to admit, the gift was fantastic. It's fantastic. It was very thoughtful. That requires thought. So in my mind, I'm saying, Matt, you put a lot of thought in this. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, man. You put a lot of thought in that, and I appreciate that. I really do. Individually wrapping each one of these movies. Teen Wolf Season 1, Rudy, Main Event, MVP. Movies that, again, not considered movies that are good movies in the realm. But what did I always say? It's the thought that counts, right? It's the thought that counts. So I'll take it in that way. Matt, appreciate you for that, of course. Appreciate you for the gift. Again, I have his movies actually sitting on my desk here in the studio. I thought it was hysterical. Unbelievable. Lots of thought into that. So, speaking of Christmas here, one of the challenges with my family every year, my wife and I especially, is family Christmas budgeting. And by budgeting, I mean my kids. So every year, my wife and I always haggle about the roundabout number we have for how much money we want to spend on the kids this year for Christmas. And then of course in the year of inflation, you got to think a little broadly, because here's the thing. Yeah, it's great. Christmas is here. Holidays. Yay, gifts. We get that. But guess what? The bills don't go away. And unless I'm getting a Christmas bonus this year from my job, which I'm probably not. Although I did get a little something from my I said on the podcast a couple weeks ago, at the luncheon I got for 4 years of service. Unless I get a Christmas bonus, nothing's going to change, and the bills are going to stay the same. I think it's very responsible for families to blow their load on money for gifts, especially if they can't afford it. To start the new year broke. That makes no sense to me now. Look, I am not trying to be a Grinch here. People say, "Oh, well, you're cheap." No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying spend wisely. Still, set a sensible budget. This is what I'm talking about here. I'm not sitting here saying that, oh, don't spend money on this gift or that gift. No one's saying that. I'm saying I'm just talking about in terms of budgeting. So her and I, we go back and forth on that because, look, our kids are young. They're 9 and 5. And one thing I've learned in the years of being a dad now and seeing year to year how this thing works is that, especially my kids, I can't speak for everybody else's kids, but I can speak for my kids here. Whenever my kids get gifts, whenever they get gifts, They enjoy it for give them a month, maybe 6 weeks. And by February, they don't give a shit anymore about the gift anymore. They don't care about the gifts anymore. So I was telling my wife, can we be very careful about how much money we spend this year on the gifts? Plus, this has been a tough year financially for a lot of people because, again, inflation, gas prices, the whole nine. Can we be very careful how much money we're spending this year on the gifts? Like, she wants it to not spoil the kids, but she likes to provide and give them a nice Christmas. And I'm for you on that. I'm for that 100%. But I don't want to go broke doing it either in the process. You know what I'm saying? She wants to pay for the moments Christmas morning when opening gifts as a family. Okay? She wants that. And again, I am totally for that. But we should set a nice limit to how much money we're spending on that. So every year we go through this. Every year we haggle on this thing. Every year we don't fight about that, but there are sometimes disagreements about how much money to spend, what gift to get, and whatnot, and how much value in that gift. So again, this year, we haggled again on a number. I'm not going to say the number exactly what it is, but we agreed on a number, and we've met that number. We've met the number, you know. But every year it's a battle. Every year's a battle. When I bring on the podcast probably next week, we'll probably discuss that a little more in detail. Look, I'm not trying to sit there and say I'm trying to be cheap. I'm not trying to be cheap at all. I just don't like overspending when you don't need to, especially on things that by March they don't give a fuck about. By March, they're not going to care about that truck that you got them. You know those things I got my kids last year alone that they've now some of the gifts got last year, they don't even play with anymore. So, like I said, we need to be a little more sensible about this. Call me cheap all you want. You can call me this and that. I don't give a shit. So, so we haggle on this a lot every year, and it's a battle. That's the same. Anyway, let's do a top five. Let's do a little top five thing here. I haven't done a top five here in a while on this podcast, and I think for the theme we're doing here, let's do my top five Christmas movies here. And I don't know if 2 through 5 is in order. I know my number 1 is definitely my number 1. 2 through 5 can go either way. And one of these selections here in my top 5, I'm gonna explain a little more in detail why this was a late entry. So my 5th favorite Christmas movie of all time is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles with John Candy. Great movie. Again, a movie that for a long time I did not think was a Christmas movie, but we're here. Number 4, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase. A classic. A classic. Number 3, and this might shock some people here, not because of that it's high on my list, because it should be it's a high on my list movie anyway in general. Train Places. Now, up until probably a couple days ago, I would have never, ever, ever considered this movie a Christmas movie at all. Train Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. And I did a poll actually on social media yesterday. And by a smidge, most people actually do consider this movie a Christmas movie, a holiday movie. So, because of that now, this movie is now entering my top 5 last minute based on that alone. So Train Places is now on my top 5 Christmas movies of all time. Number 2, Love Actually. I shock some folks. I love rom-coms, bud. I love rom-coms. Especially, dude, there is something about Hugh Grant in movies that I know what it is. The he was a movie that my wife and I like also the music and me, whatever movie it is he did back in the day. He played like the old washed up pop star back in the day. But Hugh Grant movies, especially, it hits the right chord for me. Love Actually it's a great movie. I love the storyline. It's great. It's a classic. My wife and I love. We watch every year, every Christmas Eve, Christmas week, whatever it may be. So it's definitely my top 2, 3 movies all time. Christmas movies all time. Number 1 should be surprise anybody. Home Alone. And fascinating thing about Home Alone for me is for many years growing up, even though I know this movie was based on around Christmas, I never considered it a Christmas movie myself. Because Home Alone, I watch at any time. I don't watch that only in December. I watch this movie in April or in June. Even today, I'll do the same thing. Because it's a great movie in general. So Home Alone is my top Christmas movie of all time. So again, 5, Plane, Trains, Automobiles. 4, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. 3, Trading Places. 2, Love Actually. And number 1, excuse me, I almost had a burp. 1, Home Alone. My top 5 Christmas movies. Here's something that's been pretty cool as of late. And some folks here might actually appreciate this. I don't know. We'll see. My wife has been lately really sharing in my sports interests. You guys know I love sports. You guys know I love NBA basketball, NFL football, the whole 9, baseball, you name it. And it hit me really more than anything else this weekend watching the World Cup final on Sunday. By the way, fantastic game between France and Argentina. Fantastic game. I love soccer. I don't have time for soccer, though, to watch it. I would love to watch it more. I would love to get to MLS. I told my wife that we should probably try to get into MLS more often. Watch the soccer games more often. Maybe get into the Premier League, whatever. I just don't have the time. I say all the time on this podcast, I don't have time to watch content as it is. So adding that, will be tough. Like, I can barely watch college basketball right now because I don't have time for it. But back to what I was saying. It hit me, though, watching the World Cup. Because I knew it was coming on. The game was on in some minutes. My wife just randomly, she was homesick on Sunday. And she just randomly comes to me and says, "Hey, honey, put on the World Cup final." I'm like, huh? World Cup final? Really? Okay. And this is the pattern we've been seeing lately, too, with her in the last year, especially. Like, football Sundays, for example, she's not home with me. Football Sundays, she's at work. I'm home. But every Sunday, she'll ask me for there are 3 games, there are 3 teams she cares about in the NFL. The Saints, because she loved Drew Brees. The Dolphins, obviously, the hometown team. And then the Giants, because of me. So every Sunday, she'll either tell me before she goes to work or send me a text before kickoff asking, okay, what time is this game on? Who are they playing? What time is this game on? And, it's funny, like, it's weird because, like, when we first started dating in 2006, I was probably at the, if not my peak, definitely up there in my fanhood of sports in terms of adulthood, in terms of being absolutely apoplectic about things, being nuts about things. She'll tell you stories of how one time, this is not, she's probably going to exaggerate this one day, she'll say this, how I threw off the bed one time watching a Cardinals-Bears game on Monday Night Football because a play happened. And I didn't throw off the bed. I just moved quickly, and then I was holding her and then reacted. But I didn't throw off the bed. Come on. She's probably going to say that, but whatever. So there's a time where she just didn't, she hated sports, specifically football, because of me. Not because she hated it, because her and her dad used to watch it growing up. She didn't mind it. But being with me and knowing how obsessed I was about it drove her fucking nuts. Just drove nuts. So she went through a phase where she just hated football. Hated hearing about it, this and that. Baseball's too boring, so she didn't care about that. Basketball was the only sport where she was actually more accepting with, because it's a lot more spread out. It's 82 games. And plus aesthetically, she loves the game anyway, too, basketball. So even when the big 3 Heat with LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, she was into that. She was invested in that. And even now, she'll watch League Pass with me every night. Like, she won't have it. She may not be focused on it, but we'll have it like on the iPad. Let's say we're watching TV, for example. Her and I watch TV together. I'll have the iPad in our room. Have my iPad set up to the side while I'm watching the games, and the main TV will have the main TV and stuff. But she'll check in the games and when I'm watching. But this year, she's really taking a step up now, where she's invested in the NFL. The NFL now, like, she's actually following things. It helps. The Dolphins are good this year too, especially they're very competitive. And it's actually kind of fun. Like, I thought it'd be a weird thing because sports is my thing and Disney's her thing, and no. But she's actually starting to share interests, and it's actually in a very authentic and genuine way. It's not like she's like being forced to, or I'm telling her to watch this. She genuinely wants to at least know what's going on. I'm not saying she's going to be obsessed in everything that happens in every game and every stat. She's not playing fantasy football and all that. But she's genuinely interested now. And, week to week, it was like, cool. She watches all the games, I tell the games. But when she asked me to put on the World Cup, even though it was going to go on anyway, because I was preparing for it anyway. But the fact that she just randomly says, hey, put on the World Cup final. It's on. Like, what the hell? What have you done to my wife? So, but it's cool. It's really freaking cool. Not to fall off the wagon again and just throw off the bed. I guess this should stick. So, anyway, what else do I have on the docket here? I want to clear up here. Elon Musk is so interesting, man. I guess from the Elon Musk thing on Twitter. So obviously, he's taken over as the CEO, the owner of Twitter. What was it? $43 billion it cost him. He took on 13. Here's what I'm finding out about Elon Musk. He took on $13 billion in debt to take over the social media platform, which is insane. They're in debt before he even arrived, and I'm trying to find the information here. Makes sense. There it is, right there. So yeah, took on $30 billion in debt when he took over. And Twitter, obviously, a lot of folks have been very unhappy with Elon Musk because of him talking about political things now. He's supposedly now a Republican now, former Democrat, and now he likes Ron DeSantis, and look, whatever. And there's been total chaos on Twitter since it's taking it over. Journalists getting accounts suspended. Keith Olbermann got his account suspended at one point. And then he just sold another $3.5 billion in Tesla stock. Of course, Tesla that he owns recently for whatever reason, I guess to continue propagating Twitter. He did a poll actually on Sunday or Saturday, whatever day it was, last couple of days, asking if he should step down as the CEO of Twitter. And he said he would respond depending on how the poll went. And the polls suggested that he should step down as CEO of Twitter. Now, do I think he'll do this? Probably not, but who knows? I feel like he's trolling here. Elon has been very polarizing there too because he's very anti Anthony Fauci. He obviously does not like the way Anthony Fauci has handled the pandemic, so he wants him to be prosecuted. He's been saying things on Twitter that are polarizing in that topic in relation to Fauci. I'll say this much about Elon Musk. The dude's interesting. I don't hate the guy. I don't find him. I don't find him as harmful as everybody else does. I will say that. You may agree or disagree with me. That's okay. I just don't find the guy as harmful as people make him out to be. But no, it's funny. Like, I do think, he took over this Twitter thing out of sheer ego, and it's kind of bite him in the ass now if you think about it. But who knows? Maybe there is a pathway here to where he can get this thing back in place. Get Twitter back where it needs to be. Get Twitter back to being a front runner in in this space. I don't know. I know he actually undid this recently, but he announced a couple days ago that he was going to ban accounts that had like other social media links on there because of competition, such as link trees and all that stuff. And I know it pissed off a bunch of my friends, which now undid that. A lot of people do cross promotions and stuff. Like, for example, if I'm telling folks on Twitter, "Hey, I'm here, but also check out my Facebook or check out my Instagram," he was trying to prevent people from doing that. Well, not prevent people from doing it, but not a lot of people have a way to link that stuff. Obviously, the sheer backlash of that caused him to undo that idea smartly. But man, he has been very polarizing on there, entertaining too at the same time, but very polarizing. So we'll see what's left of Elon Musk going in 2023. I'm really curious to see how he handles things moving forward in the next year. Okay, so a couple of recommendations here. I've been watching a couple of shows I've been watching here. A couple documentaries I watched on HBO recently. Want to share with you guys. First off, Lincoln Project documentary on Showtime. If you guys don't know who the Lincoln Project is, it is a political super PAC of former or still maybe you want to call them disgruntled Republicans. Most of them are former now at this point now, that were in the hunt and the fight to defeat Donald Trump in the 2020 election. The super PAC was formed, of course, in 2019 by Rick Wilson and Reed Gallon and Steve Schmidt and folks of that nature. The documentary basically falls into the timeline from when they started in 2019, late 2019, into the election 2020 and up to present day, I believe. Lots of and obviously you see the inside work on how they created these ads to help defeat Donald Trump, and there's stories about how there once were Republicans before, and now they discuss it with the party today and this and that and do all they can. But the interesting part of the documentary is that you thought you would think it would be just a thing about just like just the focus on Donald Trump. Clearly, there's a little more stuff in here, more interesting than that. Like obviously, there was a lot of infighting and who was the real founders of the organization. Also, money, how much money they made. I know they made $90 million in that year alone in 2020. And then you have, of course, one of the founders, John Weaver, being accused of sexual misbehavior with young kids and stuff, and he's involved in the organization, and that hurts them with donors and stuff. And it's a very fascinating thing because, like, you see that even with a good-minded, or not good-minded, but like what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's a good-intentioned group or intentional group with these intentions that when you involve money and you involve power involved, that things can get dirty, and it did, and it got really dirty. So a lot of the members end up leaving, and I think Mike Madrid left the Mike Madrid left. I think Steve Smith eventually left also too. Jennifer Horn, who apparently wanted money and more power and like a guaranteed salary, whatever, and they told her no. And it's just really fascinating that even when you're well intentioned, that still the minute you have money involved, it can get dirty. But I've been a fan of Lincoln Project for a bit now because obviously I'm not a Trump guy, so I mean like I don't hate the guy, but like how I feel about that. But it's one of those things where like they were a very principled group, and they got the job done. They've done a good job in what their vision is, obviously. But of course, with power comes responsibilities, and when people want to feel like they're being appreciated and whatnot. But it's a good documentary, 5 parts on Showtime. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I thought it was very insightful. I thought we see some of the more behind the scenes stuff. A lot of people don't like him. I've loved Rick Wilson. I think Rick Wilson is one of the most gutsiest and funniest like political commentators on right now in going. Not just because he's anti-Trump as a record, but he's also I find him very, very, very authentic personally. But that's just my opinion. But you have that. That was a good documentary. Then I also just finished today, actually, the documentary on HBO Max on Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal, of course, you guys know, Hall of Fame basketball player, one of the, in my opinion, 10 greatest players of all time. Arguably greatest center of all time. Arguably. I think, we could talk about Will Chamberlain and Bill Russell, but certainly Shaq's in the conversation. And this documentary I thought was going to be just some. It felt like more like an autobiography more so, but you got more insight on Shaq. And I think the documentary gets better as you start going through the parts. It's a 4-part thing. Each episode is 45 minutes to an hour. First episode an hour plus, and then the preceding 3 after that is like 45 minutes each. So it's a good length. You can get through it in one day, really, if you really put your mind to it. I finished the last 2.5 parts of the documentary today, actually, before I came on here to do the podcast. It's a lot of the stuff is very surface level, like the stuff with Shaq and Kobe, very surface level. And then you go more into detail about that. To me, the most fascinating part of the documentary is his relationship with his stepfather, his father. His stepfather who finally passes away like recently, last couple of years. He didn't have a relationship with his father until recently, in recent years. Relationship with his mom, obviously. Being raised in a military family. Drill sergeant. His just trek into the NBA and some of the things that with the his early years in Orlando Magic and how that thing came apart at the seams because of the lack of respect he felt he was getting from Orlando, undercutting on money on a new contract. Same to LA Lakers after that 7 years and 8 years of Kobe and Shaq in LA, and he feeling disrespected as well too. Then seeing the end was actually pretty cool too. You've seen the transition from being the older player in Miami, going through Phoenix and Boston, Cleveland, and then retiring, and then going to media. It's funny. I've been someone with Shaq that I think of all the all-time greats, and not just basketball, but all sports in general. I've probably been toughest on Shaq because Shaquille O'Neal, in my opinion, is supposed to be the greatest player of all time. Certainly in the top 5, and he's not. He's probably top 10. I mean, he's number 10 on my list, and even that I struggle with too because I feel like he left some on the table. And you see that too also in the documentary where after winning the three-peat against with the Lakers in 2002, he takes time off because his foot decides to get surgery on his toe on company time, and that whole thing, how that played out, and him and Kobe and the Eagles with that, and how that was handled. But I think I've come to a better place with Shaq these days now, a better understanding of Shaq now today, and not even because of the documentary too, especially just because of this in general. Because I used to, for example, when he went on NBA and TNT, I was actually not a fan of it initially because I was not a big Shaq guy. I just wasn't a big Shaq guy, especially till his career. And I thought when they had the three guys of Ernie Johnson, Charles Barkley, and Kenny Smith, that was good enough. But I gotta tell you, the Shaq fits that team, and I hated saying that for a long time, but he does fit the NBA and TNT team, and I started to realize that maybe I'm using my personal, not vendetta, but my personal disappointment on Shaq to weigh my opinions. And I shouldn't do that. I really shouldn't do that. So, taking a step back and assessing his career, he's got to be a top 10 player. For a good 3-4 years, he was the most dominant force I've ever seen in the sport of basketball. Not named Michael Jordan. 2002, dominant as I've ever seen a force. Now, maybe we may disagree with the way he handled things and whatnot, but dude, look, the dude has 4 titles. Not a lot of teams three-peat. He did. Him and Kobe. They made it work despite their issues. So you got to give him credit there. But other than that, it's pretty good. It reads more like autobiography. I like the way the doc was filmed too. Also, it's very animated. It kind of fits Shaq's humor too, especially his personality. So the way they did the transition shots and all that, I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed it. Not the greatest documentary I've ever seen in my life, obviously, but it's good. It's a good watch. If you love NBA basketball, love Shaq, and I think you appreciate it. I think you will do. So, I think the palette is cleared. I think. I'm going through this here. Seeing things here I want to talk about before I get out of here. I'm looking through the palette here before it clears off for the rest of the year. No, I think I am done. Like I said, I'm going to be stretching the palette here. Like I said, next year. Can't wait 2023. We're going to have, I think, 2 more shows. Barring emergencies, of course. This will be the last normal show of the year. Like I said, next week we'll do our annual Christian Family Christmas Chronicles of 2022 with my wife, who's supposed to be on the show, and my 2 kids. We'll record them, and I'll give my piece on that, on how the holidays went. And then, of course, as I said earlier in the podcast, we're going to be doing a best of episode to be dropped on New Year's Eve, the best segments of the show for 2022. So, other than that, check out Earnestly Unfiltered as well too on another feed. I'll be dropping some stuff there on a semi-daily basis, hopefully. But if I don't talk to you guys until then, a very Merry Christmas, and we'll see you on the next one. Talk to you later. God bless. Bye.